We are experiencing a global economic meltdown not seen since the Great Depression, something no Vancouver City Council has ever experienced. Yesterday, City staff walked Council through various economic scenarios showing how a long shutdown could mean shortfalls of up to $189 million across this year and next. On Sunday, I released a study that my office had commissioned asking Vancouver residents about the financial pressures faced by their households. This type of research has not yet been done in Canada, and it has sparked interest and concern for many organizations, including the Bank of Canada and mayors from around the world. I've always believed in laying out all the facts, good or bad, while hoping for the best and planning for the worst, and most importantly, being transparent with residents. But there's been a lot of confusion and, frankly, misinformation out there about what I said and what our city's fiscal capacity is. So I want to clear a few things up. First, the City of Vancouver has already taken several steps to reduce spending and make cuts to non-core services. We've already cut approximately 10% across the board, and we're on track to save $24 million through temporary layoffs and $6 million in other cost savings. These cuts have been extremely difficult to make as they affect real people who work day in and day out to make this city the best place in the world to live. And it affects the services on which the public has come to rely. However, we could see more layoffs and deeper cuts should COVID-19 restrictions continue until the end of the summer. The City Manager is leading an all-department effort to reduce service and program spending in order to balance our budget and ensure we are in a strong position to help with the economic recovery. But there are a lot of rules when it comes to what finances we can and cannot draw upon to pay for vital city services and programs. So first, let's start with what we can immediately do. We have around $130 million in accessible cash reserves, which we use to fund emergencies and unforeseen costs. While staff do not recommend using more than a quarter to one-third of this reserve in case of other emergencies such as earthquakes and snowstorms, if pressed, we could use it all. But even then, this wouldn't cover the potential shortfalls in the worst-case scenario of the pandemic going until the end of 2020. And this fund doesn't begin to address what would happen to city finances if people start to default on their property taxes. This brings me to my second point. The study I released Sunday showed over one-third of those who responded to the survey said they might default on some or all of their property tax, with just two-thirds saying they can or will pay in full. This is terrible news for homeowners finding themselves in this situation, and my heart goes out to them. But it's also bad news for city finances. Staff have crunched the numbers and have told us that for every 10% of property taxes that aren't paid, we lose $130 million more. If even 1 in 4 homeowners do end up defaulting on their property taxes, that would mean an additional loss of $325 million in revenues. This is where things get far more serious than the other financial challenges we face. We simply don't have the reserves to deal with a $500 million shortfall. And this is what keeps me up at night. Tens of thousands of homeowners unable to pay their property taxes and causing a massive shortfall. I provided all of this information over the weekend so people could see for themselves, and that's why I'm asking the federal and provincial governments for help. The third item that is causing confusion is the use of city capital funds and development contributions. Some are reporting that we have billions in reserves and a large budget surplus. Again, it's not that simple. It is true we have billions of dollars in assets, but the vast majority of these assets are tied up in real estate and other assets that are not easily converted to cash. And the majority of this value is in land that has affordable housing on it, and libraries on it, and fire halls on it. In order to access these funds, we would need to sell off land, something that I believe is extremely short-sighted, not to mention how dumb it would be to try and unload assets in the middle of one of the worst global downturns in the past century. The same goes for the perceived budget surplus some have been bringing up. This figure is largely made up of development contributions, funds that are restricted by the province to capital projects and cannot be used for our operating budgets. This is the reason why canceling construction of projects like the Granville Bridge Connector won't help our position. Only a small proportion of this project is linked to our operating budget and possible deficits. Now, this is all very complex, and it's new for Vancouver, as we've never gone through something like this as a city. Our staff is working flat out to find savings, reduce costs, and make sure we are in the best possible position when it comes time to plan our economic recovery. They're the best, and I really want to thank them for all their work. This crisis will pass, and when it does, we need to be ready to process permits and building approvals and support our small businesses and residents as they return to work. We have asked senior levels of government to for help to make sure we are in a strong fiscal position, but so far we have heard nothing concrete. We are still waiting on a reply to the package of aid requests that 19 other Metro mayors and I made to the Premier a few weeks ago. And through the Big City Mayors Caucus, we are waiting to hear back on a separate package of requests that have been sent to Deputy Prime Minister Freeland. Like our City Council, the governments of Toronto, Ottawa, Edmonton, and other big Canadian cities are also grappling with the possibility of hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue losses if this pandemic goes into December. So before I wrap up, I want to make something clear. I will do everything possible to make sure Vancouver maintains its core operations, keeps business running, and is ready to help with our recovery when the time comes. We are not, quote, on the verge of bankruptcy, as some media outlets reported over the weekend. I did not say that, and I'm not saying this now. I think all mayors would reasonably agree their city finances would be devastated if property owners are not able to pay their full property taxes, as our research shows may be the case for up to 35% of our residents. This is why we need to hear from the provincial and federal governments right now as to how they are going to help us. If they are not going to help us, tell us. If they are going to help us, tell us. Don't leave us hanging in the middle of this massive crisis.